Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about online scams and cybersecurity.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
It is. I think it's a topic that's more relevant now than ever.
Definitely. It seems like every day there's a new scam or a new data breach.
Exactly. So to help us unpack all this, we're going to be looking at an interview with Amit Dubey.
All right.
He's a cybercrime investigator in India,
Oh, wow.
and he was featured on an Indian podcast talking about all sorts of scams and cybersecurity threats.
So even though this is from an Indian podcast, this stuff is relevant to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
These scams and tactics that he talks about are happening all over the world.
Yeah, cybercrime doesn't really have borders, does it?
Exactly. And one story that really stood out to me from this interview was about the people who called Dubey after losing money in these online scams.
Oh.
Yeah, these scams that promised easy earnings.
Like what?
The amounts that people lost ranged from 200 to a staggering euro 26 crore.
Wow, 26 crore. That's a lot of money.
It is. It's a huge amount.
So what kind of scams are we talking about here?
Well, Dubey mentioned one scam involving a 200 joining bonus.
A joining bonus.
Yeah.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah. So in this scam, victims were asked to do simple tasks like subscribing to WhatsApp channels or leaving positive reviews,
Okay.
and then they would get this 200 payment.
So they're basically paying people to do their marketing for them.
Right. And that small payment is just bait.
Bait.
Yeah. To make people think, well, I already made 200. What's the harm in investing a little more?
I see. So it starts small, and then they try to get you to invest more and more,
Exactly. And that's when they hit you with more complex schemes.
involving larger investments.
And of course, there's no guarantee that you'll actually make any money.
It plays on that whole get-rich-quick mentality that people have.
Exactly. And scammers know how to exploit that.
So how do they find their victims?
Well, Dubey talked about how these scammers use platforms like Telegram and WhatsApp to create a sense of community. They'll share fake success stories, making it seem like everyone is winning big.
Oh, like those I made $10,000 in a week kind of posts.
Exactly. It's all about social proof.
Social proof.
Yeah, seeing others supposedly making money creates FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Ah, I get it. So people are more likely to take risks. They think everyone else is getting rich.
Exactly.
So how do we protect ourselves from this? Like, how do we know what's real and what's a scam?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to be skeptical.
Skeptical.
Yeah, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and always do your research before investing in anything.
Research. Okay.
Don't just take someone's word for it, even if they seem trustworthy.
Especially online, right? You never really know who you're dealing with.
Right, it's easy to create a fake persona online and make yourself seem like something you're not.
So what you're saying is trust your gut.
Yeah, if something feels off, it probably is.
Good advice.
So, we've talked about the lure of easy money, but Dubey also talked about another danger.
What's that?
The danger of blindly trusting apps that seem helpful, like Truecaller.
Truecaller. Isn't that the app that helps identify unknown callers?
It is, and it can be a useful tool.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Me too. But it's important to remember that Truecaller doesn't verify the accuracy of the names displayed.
Wait, what do you mean?
So even if Truecaller says a call is from your bank, it might not be.
Oh, so scammers could be using that to their advantage.
Exactly. They can easily impersonate officials and gain your trust.
Especially if you're already inclined to believe what you see on the app.
Right. We tend to trust technology, especially if it's an app that we use regularly.
Yeah, it's like we assume that if an app has a lot of downloads, it must be safe.
Exactly, but that's not always the case.
So what do we do? How do we know who to trust?
Well, Dubey emphasizes the importance of adopting a zero-trust model online.
Zero trust.
Yeah, it means not blindly trusting any app or online service.
So we should always be questioning and verifying information.
Exactly, especially if it involves sharing personal details or making financial transactions.
Okay, that makes sense.
So no more blindly trusting those flashy apps with tons of 5-star reviews.
Right, just because an app is popular doesn't mean it's trustworthy.
Exactly. And speaking of app permissions, Dubey also talked about the potential risks associated with phone launcher apps.
Phone launcher apps, what are those?
Those are the apps that let you customize the look of your phone, like changing the icons or the layout.
Oh yeah, I've used those before.
Yeah, me too. They can be fun, but they often require a lot of permissions.
Permissions.
Yeah, like access to your camera, microphone, even your keyboard input.
Wait, seriously? Why would they need access to all that?
It's a good question, and it's something to be aware of.
So that cool app that changes my app icons, could be accessing my camera and microphone without me knowing.
It's possible, and while not every app with these permissions is malicious,
Oh.
it's crucial to be aware of the potential risks.
Yeah, because they could be collecting data or even be exploited by scammers.
Exactly, and I'll admit, I've never really paid much attention to the permissions I grant apps.
Me neither. It's just easier to click accept and move on.
Right, but that's precisely what scammers are hoping for.
So what should we do?
Dubé recommends carefully reviewing the permissions requested by any app before you install it,
Before installing, okay?
especially those that want access to sensitive functions like your camera, microphone, or SMS.
So how can we check those permissions?
On the app's Play Store page, there's a section called See Details,
See details.
and there you can see the specific permissions the app is requesting.
So we should take the time to actually read through those permissions and not just blindly click accept.
Exactly. Think about whether those permissions are really necessary for the app to function.
That's good advice.
I'm definitely going to start paying more attention to those permissions from now on.
Me too.
It's scary to think about what kind of data I might have unknowingly shared with apps in the past.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what they're doing with all that information.
Right. It's a good reminder to be more mindful of our digital footprint.
Definitely. We need to be more aware of what we're sharing online and what permissions we're granting.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the lure of easy money and the illusion of safety these scammers create.
Right.
But what about protecting our loved ones?
Yeah, that's important too.
It sounds like that was a big concern for Doobie as well.
What did he say about that?
He shared a story about a senior VP who lost 1 lakh because he thought he was sending money to a close friend on WhatsApp.
On WhatsApp?
Yeah, but it turned out to be a scammer.
Oh, no.
And he didn't even think to verify the request.
Wow, that's scary. It really shows how scammers target us through the people we trust the most.
Exactly. They know we're more likely to let our guard down when it seems like a request is coming from a friend or family member.
Especially if it seems urgent, like they need the money right away.
Right. Scammers often use urgency as a tactic
Urgency,
to
yeah.
pressure people into acting quickly without thinking.
So even if a request seems to come from someone we know, we should always take a moment to verify.
Exactly. Even if it seems urgent.
Verify, okay.
Don't let panic or pressure cloud your judgment.
So a quick phone call or a message through a different platform could save you a lot of trouble.
Exactly. And be cautious about sharing personal information online.
Online, okay.
It's easy to overshare on social media or fill out online forms without thinking about where that information might end up.
Yeah, and Dumais pointed out that scammers often have a lot of detailed information about their targets,
Like what?
like close contacts, financial status, even daily routines.
Wow, where are they getting all this information?
Social media profiles, online quizzes, data breaches, all sorts of places.
It's a good reminder to be more mindful of our digital footprint.
Absolutely. We need to be vigilant about what we share online and who we share it with.
Exactly, because you never know who might be watching or how that information might be used against you.
Okay, so we've talked about scams on social media and through apps. But what about stolen devices? I know that's a big problem too.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, especially in India, but it's a global issue as well.
Global, okay.
Stolen devices definitely contribute to the whole cybersecurity problem.
How so?
Well, scammers exploit the demand for cheaper secondhand phones.
Right. People are always looking for good deals.
Exactly, and scammers will often tamper with IMEI numbers to disguise stolen devices.
IMEI numbers, what are those?
It stands for International Mobile Equipment Identity.
Okay.
It's a unique identifier for every phone.
So like a fingerprint for your phone.
Exactly, and it's essential for tracking stolen devices.
But if they're tampered with, it becomes much harder to recover the phone.
Right, so if you're thinking about buying a used phone, always check the IMEI number.
Check the IMEI.
Okay. In India, you can use a government portal called Sanchar Sathi to verify its legitimacy.
Sanchar Sathi. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are similar resources available in other countries.
Okay.
It's definitely worth doing your research before buying a used device.
Yeah, both for your own protection and for ethical reasons.
Right, because buying a stolen phone, even unknowingly, fuels the black market.
And contributes to the problem.
Exactly. It's not just about protecting ourselves from scams.
Right.
It's about being responsible consumers and making sure we're not supporting illegal activity.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from social media scams and app permissions to stolen devices.
Right, and the importance of being mindful of what we share online.
Exactly. But then Dubé went on to talk about something that seemed a bit unrelated.
What's that?
the debate about EVM hacking in India.
EVM hacking. What are EVMs?
They're electronic voting machines.
Voting machines. What does that have to do with scams and cybersecurity?
Well, it might seem unrelated at first glance,
Okay.
but it's actually a great example of how misinformation can erode trust in technology.
Even when strong security measures are in place.
Exactly. Dubé explained that EVMs are actually very difficult to hack.
Difficult to hack.
Yeah, they're standalone devices with no internet access.
So no one can just hack in from their laptop somewhere.
Right, making remote hacking impossible.
That's good to know, especially with all the concerns about election security these days.
Exactly, and it's not just the lack of internet access.
Huh?
The hardware and software used in EVMs are proprietary.
Proprietary.
Yeah, meaning they're not publicly available.
Oh, I see.
So it's extremely difficult to tamper with them.
So they've been designed with security in mind from the ground up.
Exactly. And to add another layer of security, there's a strict chain of custody for every EVM.
A chain of custody.
Yeah, each machine is carefully tracked from storage to polling booths.
So there's a clear paper trail, making it almost impossible to swap one out or manipulate it without anyone noticing.
Exactly.
But I've seen videos and claims online that supposedly show EVMs being hacked.
Right, and Dubé addressed this directly.
What did he say?
He explained that those demonstrations often involve modified or counterfeit devices.
Not the real EVMs used in elections.
Exactly. It's like trying to discredit a bank vault by showing someone breaking into a cardboard replica.
Ah, I get it. It doesn't really reflect the actual security of the real thing.
Exactly. And it underscores the importance of critical thinking and media literacy.
Critical thinking. Okay.
We need to be careful about what we believe online.
Especially when it comes to sensitive topics like elections.
Right. It's all about context and verifying information from credible sources.
So we should always question the source and look for evidence to support the claims.
Exactly. Dubé's insights into EVM security really highlight the need to be discerning consumers of information.
Especially in the digital age.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From social media scams and app permissions to stolen devices and the importance of being mindful of what we share online.
It's been a real eye-opener.
Definitely. It makes you think twice about what you do online.
It does. So what's the biggest takeaway for you from everything we've discussed?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the importance of a zero-trust approach.
Zero trust. Okay.
We can't just assume that things are safe or that people are who they say they are online.
Right. We have to verify everything.
Exactly. And always be aware of what information you're sharing online.
Because you never know who might be using it against you.
Right. It's a scary thought, but it's the reality we live in.
It is. So I guess the key is to be vigilant, be skeptical, and always use common sense.
Don't let fear or excitement cloud your judgment, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Exactly. And if something seems too good to be true or too scary to be ignored,
Yeah,
it probably is.
good advice.
Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights and advice on how to stay safe in the digital world.
Sounds good. I'll be listening.
See you then.
It's a lot to think about,
It is.
but it's important to be aware of these things.
Absolutely. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
are there any specific red flags that we should be looking out for?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
One of the most common red flags is the promise of quick and easy money.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Right. If something sounds too good to be true,
Yeah.
it probably is.
Like if someone is promising guaranteed returns
Yeah.
or claiming that they have a secret method to make you rich overnight,
Exactly.
that's a major red flag.
Definitely.
Okay.
Another red flag is pressure tactics.
Pressure tactics.
Yes, scammers often try to create a sense of urgency
Urgency.
to push people into making decisions without thinking them through.
So if you feel like you're being pressured or rushed into making a decision,
Yeah,
that's a sign to step back and reassess the situation.
exactly. Take your time, do your research. Don't let anyone pressure you into something you're not comfortable with.
Good advice.
And here's another tip. Be wary of unsolicited messages or emails.
Unsolicited.
Yeah, especially if they contain links or attachments.
So don't click on any links or open any attachments unless you're absolutely sure they're from a legitimate source.
Right. Scammers often use phishing emails to try to steal your personal information or install malware on your devices.
So it's like a digital trap, luring you in with something that seems interesting or important.
And then, bam, they've got you.
Okay, so we've got to be really careful about what we click on
Absolutely.
and be cautious about sharing personal information online.
Right. Think about what information you're putting out there on social media, in online forums, on various websites.
It's like we're building a digital profile of ourselves.
Yeah.
And scammers can use that information to target us more effectively.
Exactly. Be mindful of your digital footprint and think twice before sharing sensitive information.
That makes sense.
And here's something else to consider. Be wary of websites or online platforms that don't have proper security measures in place.
So how can we tell if a website is secure?
Well, one thing to look for is the HTTPS in the URL.
HTTPS.
Yeah, that indicates that the website is using a secure connection.
So if a website is asking for my credit card information and it doesn't have that HTTPS,
Yeah,
it's a red flag.
it definitely is not worth the risk.
Okay.
Legitimate businesses take online security seriously, and they will have measures in place to protect their customers' data.
It's like checking to see if a store has a security guard or a locked door before you walk in.
Exactly.
You wouldn't just
Yeah.
hand over your wallet to someone on the street.
Right.
And you shouldn't hand over your personal information to a website that doesn't have proper security measures.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And remember, if you see anything suspicious online, report it.
Report it.
Yeah, whether it's a phishing email, a suspicious website, or a potential scam.
Okay.
Reporting it can help prevent others from becoming victims.
So who do we report these things to?
Well, it depends on the situation.
Okay.
If you think you've been a victim of a scam, you should report it to your local law enforcement agency.
Okay.
You can also report phishing emails or suspicious websites to the respective companies or organizations involved.
That makes sense. And I'm sure there are also organizations dedicated to fighting cybercrime that we can report these things to.
Absolutely. There are organizations like the Anti-Phishing Working Group, APWG, and the Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, that collect and track information about online scams and cybercrime.
Okay, that's good to know. Reporting these things might seem like a small action,
Yeah,
but it can have a big impact in the fight against cybercrime.
exactly. It's all about collective awareness and action.
Collective awareness.
Yeah, the more we share information and work together,
Right?
the better equipped we'll be to combat these threats.
You've given us so much to think about already.
Oh, there's more.
Okay.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, well, let's dive into some specific examples of scams that are currently circulating.
Okay.
I'm particularly interested in hearing about some of the more sophisticated tactics that scammers are using these days.
That's a great question. I think it's important to remember that scammers are constantly evolving their tactics.
Evolving?
Yeah, to stay ahead of the game.
Mm.
They're becoming more sophisticated in their approach, and they're leveraging technology to their advantage.
Right. It's like an arms race
Exactly.
between scammers and those trying to protect people from scams.
So let's talk about some of the more sophisticated scams that are out there. One that's been gaining traction is known as deepfake scams.
Deepfakes.
Yeah, have you heard of those?
I've heard about those. They're those videos where it looks like someone is saying or doing something they never actually said or did.
Exactly. Deepfakes use artificial intelligence, AI, to create incredibly realistic videos or audio recordings.
So scammers could use deepfakes to create videos of celebrities endorsing their products
Yeah,
or to make it look like a friend or family member is asking for money.
exactly. And because deepfakes are becoming increasingly sophisticated,
Yeah.
it can be very difficult to tell the difference between a real video and a fake one.
That's scary. It's like we can't even trust our own eyes and ears anymore.
It's definitely a concern.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of being critical of the information we consume online.
Critical. Okay.
Always question the source of information. And be wary of anything that seems too sensational or too good to be true.
So if we see a video online that seems shocking or unbelievable,
Yeah,
it's probably a good idea to do some digging to verify its authenticity.
exactly.
Yeah.
Don't just take things at face value. Check the source, look for corroborating evidence, and be skeptical of anything that seems out of place.
Okay, deepfakes are definitely something to be aware of. Are there any other sophisticated scams that you're seeing out there?
Another one that's becoming increasingly common is known as social engineering scams.
Social engineering.
Yeah, these scams rely on manipulating people's emotions or exploiting their trust.
So it's less about hacking into computer systems
Right.
and more about hacking into people's minds.
Exactly. Social engineering scams often involve creating a sense of urgency, fear, or excitement
Okay.
to cloud people's judgment.
So, for example, a scammer might pose as a representative from a bank or a government agency,
Right.
claiming that there's a problem with your account and that you need to provide personal information to fix it.
Exactly. Or they might try to create a sense of fear by claiming that you're in legal trouble or that your identity has been stolen.
Or they might try to exploit your trust by posing as a friend or family member who needs help.
Exactly.
Wow, these scammers are really good at playing on people's emotions. It's like they know exactly what buttons to push to get what they want.
That's right. They're masters of manipulation,
Yeah.
and they're constantly coming up with new ways to deceive people.
So what can we do to protect ourselves from these social engineering scams? It seems like they're designed to bypass traditional security measures.
You're right. Traditional security measures like firewalls and antivirus software aren't going to protect you from social engineering scams.
Mm.
It's all about being aware of the tactics scammers use and being cautious about who you trust online.
So it's back to that zero trust model you mentioned earlier.
Keep
Don't
this.
just assume that someone is who they say they are or that their intentions are good.
Right.
Always verify, verify, verify.
And be cautious about sharing personal information online. Think twice before clicking on links or opening attachments from unknown sources.
Okay.
And if something seems too good to be true or too scary to be ignored,
Yeah.
it probably is.
Great advice. It seems like the key takeaway here is to be vigilant, skeptical, and to always use common sense.
Yeah.
Don't let fear or excitement cloud your judgment. And don't be afraid to ask questions or to seek help if you're unsure about something.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting your loved ones too. Share this information with your family, your friends, and your colleagues.
So it's a collective responsibility.
Exactly. The more we talk about these issues and raise awareness, the better equipped we'll all be to stay safe online.
Right. We've talked about some pretty sophisticated scams.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to something we discussed earlier,
What's that?
stolen devices.
Stolen devices.
It might seem like a less tech-savvy form of cybercrime,
Okay.
but it's still a major problem. I'm curious to hear more about the scale of this issue and the impact it has on victims.
You're right. Stolen devices might not seem as sophisticated as deepfakes or social engineering scams,
Yeah.
but it's a huge problem with real consequences for victims.
Okay.
In terms of scale, it's estimated that millions of mobile devices are stolen worldwide each year.
Millions.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a staggering number.
it is. And it's a lucrative business for criminals.
Okay.
Stolen devices can be resold on the black market, stripped for parts, or used to access personal information and commit further crimes.
So it's not just about the inconvenience of losing a phone.
No.
It's about the potential for identity theft, financial loss, and even physical harm.
Exactly. And the impact can be devastating for victims.
Yeah.
Imagine having your entire digital life.
Your contacts, your photos, your financial information
Yeah, all of
in
it.
the hands of a stranger.
It's a nightmare scenario.
Mhm.
And it highlights the importance of taking steps to protect our devices and our data.
But what can we do if our device is stolen? Is there any way to recover it or to prevent further damage?
There are steps you can take, but the chances of recovering a stolen device are slim, unfortunately. Yeah. The first thing you should do is report the theft to your local law enforcement agency and to your mobile carrier.
Right, so they can block the device and prevent unauthorized use.
Exactly. You should also change your passwords for any accounts that were accessible from the stolen device, especially your email banking and social media accounts.
That makes sense. It's like locking down your digital life as much as possible
Exactly.
to prevent the thief from accessing your information.
And if you had a remote tracking app installed on your device,
Yeah.
you might be able to track its location or even remotely wipe its data.
That's good to know. Are there any other preventative measures we can take to protect ourselves from device theft?
Definitely the most obvious one is to be aware of your surroundings and to take precautions to safeguard your device.
Okay.
Don't leave it unattended in public places, and be mindful of who's around you when you're using it.
Right. It's like being aware of your physical wallet or purse.
Exactly.
You wouldn't just leave it lying around or flash it around in a crowded place.
And just like you might keep your wallet or purse in a secure bag or pocket,
Yeah.
you can use a protective case or screen protector for your device.
That's a good point. It's not just about preventing theft. It's also about protecting your device from damage in case it's dropped or mishandled.
Absolutely. And here's another tip. Back up your data regularly.
Back up my data.
Yeah, if your device is stolen or damaged, you'll be able to restore your important information to a new device.
Right. So even if we lose the physical device, we don't lose everything.
Exactly. Data backups are essential for anyone who uses technology, regardless of whether you've been a victim of theft or not.
Okay, great advice. It's like having an insurance policy for your digital life.
Exactly.
Mm.
And speaking of insurance, some mobile carriers and insurance companies offer device protection plans that can cover the cost of repair or replacement in case of theft or damage.
That's worth looking into. It might be a worthwhile investment, especially if you have a newer or more expensive device.
Right. It's all about assessing your individual risk and taking appropriate measures to protect yourself.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on the topic of stolen devices,
We have.
but I want to shift gears again and delve into something that seems a bit more abstract.
What's that?
The concept of digital trust.
Digital trust.
We've talked about trust in apps, trust in websites, and trust in people online.
Right.
But what does it really mean to trust in the digital world?
Hmm. That's a great question.
It seems like trust is becoming increasingly fragile
Fragile.
in the age of misinformation and cybercrime.
You're right. Trust is becoming a more complex and elusive concept in the digital age.
Complex.
We're constantly bombarded with information from a multitude of sources,
Yeah.
and it can be difficult to discern what's true, what's false, and what's somewhere in between.
It's like we're navigating a digital minefield,
Exactly.
trying to avoid the traps of misinformation scams and malicious actors.
And as you said, trust is becoming more fragile.
Well, fragile.
We're more aware of the risks associated with online interactions,
Right.
and we're more skeptical of information that we encounter online.
But isn't some level of trust necessary to function in the digital world?
Of course.
We can't be suspicious of everything and everyone we encounter online.
You're right. We can't live in a constant state of paranoia, but we also can't be naive.
Okay.
We need to find a balance between
Balance.
trust and skepticism.
So we need to be able to assess risks, evaluate information, and make informed decisions about who and what we trust online.
Exactly.
So it's about developing our critical thinking skills and becoming more discerning consumers of information.
We need to learn to question sources, to verify information, and to be wary of anything that seems too good to be true or too scary to be ignored.
Right. It's about developing a healthy level of skepticism
Yeah,
without becoming completely cynical.
that's a good way to put it. And it's not just about being skeptical of information, it's also about being mindful of our own behavior online. Okay. We need to be responsible digital citizens, just as we're responsible citizens in the physical world.
So what does it mean to be a responsible digital citizen?
It means being respectful of others online, just as we're respectful of others in person. It means being mindful of the information we share and the impact our words and actions can have. And it means being proactive in protecting our own privacy and security and in reporting any suspicious activity we encounter.
So it's about being aware of the potential consequences of our actions online and taking steps to mitigate risks.
Exactly. And it's about fostering a culture of trust and accountability online.
Okay.
We need to work together to create a digital world that is safe, secure, and trustworthy.
Right. It's a collective effort. We can't just rely on technology or on law enforcement to protect us. We need to be active participants in creating a safer and more trustworthy digital environment.
Absolutely. And I think this conversation about digital trust ties back to our earlier discussion about EVMs and the importance of combating misinformation.
EVM.
Yeah, when trust in institutions and technology is eroded.
It creates fertile ground for scams, manipulation, and even social unrest.
Exactly. It's all interconnected. Misinformation breeds distrust, and distrust makes people more vulnerable to scams and manipulation.
And that's why it's so important to be critical of the information we consume online
Right.
and to be proactive in debunking myths and spreading accurate information.
Absolutely.
So we're not just passive consumers of information.
Yeah.
We're active participants in shaping the digital landscape.
We have a responsibility to use our voices and our platforms to promote truth, accuracy, and accountability.
Okay, you've really expanded on the concept of digital trust and its implications for society as a whole.
It's a big topic.
It is. It's a complex issue with no easy solutions.
Right.
But it's something we all need to be thinking about.
It's an ongoing conversation, and it's one that we need to keep having.
Okay, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
I agree.
We've covered a wide range of topics related to online scams, cybersecurity, and digital trust.
It's a lot.
It is, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with all the information, but also empowered to take action to protect myself and my loved ones.
I understand it's a lot to digest, but it's important information to be aware of. And remember, you don't have to do everything at once.
Okay.
Start by taking small steps,
Small steps.
like checking your app permissions,
Yeah.
being mindful of what you share online, and being skeptical of unsolicited messages or emails.
Great advice. Small steps can lead to big changes over time.
Absolutely. And remember, we're in this together.
Together.
We can learn from each other,
Yeah.
support each other, and work together to create a safer and more trustworthy digital world.
Well said. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to one more thing.
What's that?
The ethical considerations surrounding these issues.
Ethical considerations.
We haven't talked much about the ethical implications of online scams and cybercrime,
Right.
but it's an important aspect to consider.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, What are some of the ethical dilemmas that arise in this space?
Well, one ethical dilemma is the tension between privacy and security.
Privacy and security.
As we've discussed, many online services and apps collect vast amounts of data about their users.
Yeah.
This data can be used to improve services, personalize experiences, and target advertising,
Right.
but it also raises concerns about privacy and the potential for misuse.
Right. It's that trade-off between convenience and control.
Exactly.
We want the benefits of personalized services.
But we also want to protect our privacy and control how our data is used.
And there's no easy answer. It's a
Right.
complex issue that requires careful consideration and a balance between competing interests.
Definitely.
Okay, so privacy versus security is one ethical dilemma. What are some others?
Another ethical dilemma is the responsibility of tech companies and platforms in preventing and combating online scams and cybercrime.
So you're saying that these companies have a moral obligation to protect their users from harm?
Exactly. But they also have to balance that responsibility with the need to protect free speech and innovation.
It's a tricky situation, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely not.
Okay, so the role of tech companies is another ethical consideration. Anything else?
Another ethical issue is the use of technology for surveillance and social control.
Surveillance.
As technology advances, governments and corporations are gaining increasing capabilities to monitor and control individuals.
Wow.
This raises concerns about privacy, freedom of expression, and the potential for abuse.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
We want to use technology to improve our lives and make our societies safer.
But we also want to safeguard our freedoms and prevent technology from being used against us.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, and it's one that we need to be constantly vigilant about.
Absolutely.
Okay, you've raised some really important ethical considerations. It seems like there are no easy answers when it comes to navigating the ethical landscape of the digital world.
You're right. It's a complex and ever-evolving space. But I think the key is to be aware of the ethical implications of our actions and decisions online,
Okay.
and to engage in open and honest conversations about these issues.
Right. It's about being thoughtful and responsible digital citizens.
Exactly. And it's about demanding transparency and accountability from those who hold power in the digital world.
Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical aspects of online scams and cybersecurity to the broader ethical consideration.
A lot of ground.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, but also more informed and empowered to take action.
I understand it's a lot to take in, but it's important information to be aware of.
So before we wrap up, let's recap the key takeaways for our listeners today.
Okay.
What are the main things that people should remember from this deep dive?
First and foremost, adopt a zero-trust approach online.
Zero trust.
Verify information independently and be skeptical of promises of easy money.
If it sounds too good to be true,
Yeah.
probably is.
Second, be mindful of the data you share, even unintentionally. Carefully evaluate app permissions and be wary of apps that require access to sensitive functions like your camera, microphone, or SMS.
And don't forget to check out resources like Sanchar Sathi in India or similar platforms in other countries if you're buying a used phone.
Right.
Make sure it's not stolen
Exactly.
and you're not supporting illegal activities.
And finally, cultivate your critical thinking skills and become a more discerning consumer of information.
Oh, okay.
Don't believe everything you see online, especially when it comes to sensationalized claims or topics like elections. Do your own research and verify information from credible sources.
It's like Doobie said, knowledge is power.
Exactly.
The more informed we are, the better we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from online scams and cybersecurity threats.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
As technology continues to evolve,
Right?
the methods scammers use will only become more sophisticated.
So here's a final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Okay.
Given this evolving landscape,
Yeah.
how can we collectively empower ourselves and our communities to stay ahead of the curve and create a safer digital world?
It's a challenge we all face, and it requires ongoing awareness, education, and collaboration.
Ongoing.
Let's keep the conversation going and work together to build a more secure digital future.
Well said. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there, and until next time, keep learning and keep questioning.
Sounds good. See you next time.
Yeah, it's definitely a call to action for all of us, but before we go, I want to touch on one more point that Dubé brought up.
Okay.
He talked about the fear surrounding EVM hacking and how that fear can actually be exploited by scammers.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if people are worried about EVMs being hacked, Scammers might try to capitalize on that fear
Yeah, how?
by offering fake solutions or spreading misinformation to further sow distrust.
Oh, so they might create fake websites or social media accounts that claim to have evidence of EVM hacking.
Exactly.
Or they might even offer bogus services to, like, protect people from EVM manipulation.
Right. It's a double whammy. They're not only exploiting people's fears,
Yeah.
they're also potentially undermining trust in democratic processes.
That's a really important point. It's not just about the individual victims. This kind of manipulation can have a much wider impact.
Exactly. It can have a ripple effect on society as a whole.
So how do we combat that? It seems like it's a much bigger issue than just identifying and avoiding individual scams.
It requires a multi-pronged approach.
Multi-pronged.
Education is crucial. We need to equip people with the knowledge and the skills to critically evaluate information
Okay.
and to recognize the tactics that scammers use.
So it's not just about telling people what to avoid.
Right.
It's about teaching them how to think critically and to spot those red flags for themselves.
Exactly.
We need to empower people to be their own digital detectives, so to speak.
I love that, digital detective.
It's about giving people the tools to navigate the digital world safely and confidently.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual empowerment. We also need to hold platforms and institutions accountable for creating safer online environments.
You mean like social media platforms, tech companies, even governments?
Right.
They all have a role to play in combating misinformation and scams.
Exactly. They have a responsibility to implement measures to detect and prevent malicious activity.
To fact-check information.
Right, and to provide users with tools to report scams and abuse.
It's about creating a digital ecosystem where scammers has fewer places to hide and where users are empowered to protect themselves.
I like that, a digital ecosystem.
We also need a strong legal framework that holds scammers accountable for their actions.
Okay, so law enforcement needs to be involved as well.
Definitely law enforcement agencies need the resources and expertise to investigate and prosecute cybercrime effectively.
So it's a combination of education, prevention, and enforcement. It's like building a digital fortress with multiple layers of protection.
That's a great analogy, and it's an ongoing battle. As technology evolves, so will the methods scammers use.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse,
Exactly.
but with higher stakes than ever before.
But I'm optimistic. I believe that with increased awareness, education, and collaboration,
We can create a safer and more trustworthy digital world for everyone.
I agree, knowledge is power. The more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to face these challenges head on.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. We've gone from scams targeting individuals to the broader implications of misinformation and the erosion of trust in the digital age.
It's a lot to process.
It is. I'm feeling a mix of anxiety and determination.
I understand. But remember, we're not helpless. We have the power to protect ourselves, to educate others, and to demand change.
That's a good point. It's time to turn that anxiety into action.
So before we go, let's give our listeners some concrete advice they can use today.
Okay, what are 3 things that people can do right now to improve their online safety?
First, enable two-factor authentication on all your important accounts.
2-factor authentication.
Yeah, it adds an extra layer of security, making it much harder. Second, be mindful of what you click on and download.
Click on and download.
Don't open emails or click links from unknown senders, and only download apps from trusted sources like the official app stores.
Okay, so no clicking on those tempting links that promise free stuff.
Definitely not.
And third, be skeptical of any unsolicited requests for personal information or financial assistance.
Even if they appear to come from someone you know and trust.
Exactly.
Always verify the request through a different channel, like a phone call or a text message.
Okay, those are 3 very practical steps that everyone can take.
Yeah, and they can make a big difference.
Enable 2-factor authentication. Be mindful of what you click on and download and verify any suspicious requests.
Cybersecurity is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time fix.
It's like brushing our teeth or exercising.
Exactly.
It's something we need to do regularly to stay healthy and protected.
And just like we rely on dentists and personal trainers for guidance,
Yeah.
we can rely on experts and resources in cybersecurity to help us stay safe online.
That's a great point. There are so many resources available to help us navigate the digital world safely.
There are.
We just need to take advantage of them. And remember, it's okay to ask for help.
If you're unsure about something or think you've been a victim of a scam, don't hesitate to reach out to someone you trust.
Right. There's no shame in asking for help, especially when it comes to something as complex as cybersecurity.
Absolutely. We all need to support each other and work together to create a safer and more trustworthy digital world.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful and empowering. I'm walking away with a renewed sense of awareness and a determination to take action to protect myself and my loved ones online.
That's great to hear. And remember, knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
The more informed we are, the better equipped we'll be to combat these threats and create a safer digital future for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Stay safe out there. And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep sharing your knowledge with others.
See you next time.